Hello, check 1, 2. Good evening, everyone, and a warm welcome to all the folks who were able to make it today. As we know, the past few days, we were playing around with different type of clouds with the weather, and thankfully the clouds held up today looking at our event. And again, thank you to everyone over here that you were able to take time and come and spend some time with us. And the whole objective about today's evening is to try and make an effort, so we're going to make 2 efforts to try and take you to the cloud. The first effort already started when you guys went into the other room to have some drinks. So I don't know whether the drinks are going to help, but if the drinks doesn't help, I'm sure our esteemed panel over here will enable the journey to the clouds. So, again, before we get started, what we thought is, to give you a quick introduction to our esteemed, panelists over here, and we'll introduce them, and then after that we'll get the discussion started. So our first guest, I'm starting from the extreme right, is Daphne Jones. Daphne has been a Fortune 10 leader, very well experienced, was recently the CIO at GE Health Services. So thank you, Daphne, for taking the time and coming. The second speaker for today's evening is Robert Kelbe. He's the CIO at Security Finance. Thank you, Bob. Bob came from South Carolina and was able to make it in time yesterday. And our third speaker is Laura Cruz. She's the CIO at ICL. And our fourth speaker is Peter Morales. He's the CIO at CIEE in New York. And finally, we have a moderator for the event, Al Holmes. Al has been a CEO with a number of healthcare organizations. And a little story that, we were to have Dan Holewienko as our moderator, but he ran into some personal, last-minute emergency. And we have Al as a Superman. He flew in from Atlanta and said, "Don't worry, Prakash, we'll help you guys." And really grateful that Al could make it from Atlanta in time yesterday. And he's going to be the moderator today for you. Okay, once again, thank you, and we'll get started. Before we start the main panel discussions, I'm sure you went into the other room and you got a chance to see some of our practice areas and what we do. We're going to play a short 2-minute video to talk about who we are as an organization, Marlabs, what we do, and how we help organizations go through the digital journey. So I'm going to have Mike play the video, and that's after that we'll get our discussion started. So over to you, Mike. Thank you, Mike. We do have the Transformers movie running after this, but we can have a look at that later on. So great. So the way the format is, I'll have Al give a detailed introduction about each of our respected speakers over here, and then we do have the panel discussions which will open up in terms of the digital transformation and each of these respected thought leaders' journey onto the cloud and how they led their organization through the transformation. One request: we've actually given you out forms at the start when you all came in. And the idea is we want to have 2 lucky winners to walk away with the Amazon Echo Show. So either your cards or if you filled out the forms, we'll have Pam and Rekha collect those, and we will be announcing the winners at the end of the show. So we're looking at the discussions going on for almost an hour to hour 10 minutes, and we're going to have an open discussion after that where the audience will be allowed to ask questions to the panelists. So over to you, Al, and we'll get this thing started.
Sure.
Thank you everyone.
I didn't know that Marlabs was in the video production business. So that was a heck of a video. So if anyone needs that service, it's available these days. We're going to probably try to at least give you a little bit more detail about some of the panelists that are here. I'll just go down the list and read a brief summary of these esteemed guests. We have Bob Kelbe. Bob, am I pronouncing your last name? Okay. Bob is the CIO of Security Finance and an accomplished technology leader. His achievements include the modernization of internal IT systems as well as managing internal and client-facing technology for SaaS providers. Bob's digital transformation record encompasses new product development, M&A, software as a service, and business turnarounds. And we'll move on to Daphne. Daphne E. Jones. Daphne has recently served as a senior VP and CIO at GE Healthcare after 40 years of global leadership at IBM, Johnson & Johnson, Hospira, now Pfizer. She has driven business and technology transformations, helping those companies reimagine their value chain and business model to drive a more seamless customer fulfillment and internal productivity. She co-led the team that defined GE's digital DNA and has driven improved business agility via cloud solutions. She serves on several corporate boards and is launching her own advisory company, Destiny Transformations Group, helping leaders and companies via CIO advisory, cyber and digital advisory, and leadership development. We'll move on to Laura Cruz. Laura is CIO at ICL, which is the Institute of Community Living. It's a not-for-profit organization here within the New York City 5 boroughs. Her forte is assessing and centralizing multiple complex IT environments worldwide to leverage opportunities for shared efficiencies and reduce costs. Leading from the front, Laura has raised global IT organizations to new levels of performance and productivity through sound, long-term technology strategy. And finally, we have Peter Morales to my left. Peter is a VP and Chief Information Officer at CIEE. It's I guess an international educational organization. At CIEE, Peter is the CEO. Peter is driving initiatives in areas of operations, software development, architecture, program management, quality assurance, and product development. He also teaches at NYU on the MS in project management program. Sorry about that, Peter. Peter's track record includes the first AWS implementation at NYU, leading technology projects for American and New York stock exchanges, and developing Navy avionics diagnostic and information management systems for the F-18 fighter, which is the support jets. I'm a big airline buff, so we'll talk later. All right, so what we'll do is we have a particular format which we're going to try here where We have 3 general or common questions that will be asked of each of the panelists. I almost said each of the participants as if we're in a game show. So yeah. I had to lighten it up a little bit since we all came from that wonderful lunch. And these questions are broad, and we'll get some insight into their experiences from this list of 3 questions. And then we'll direct some particular questions that are more specific to either their expertise or the industry that each of the panelists are involved in. And our first question, and I'm not sure what order, I'll just pick one of the panelists. Can you please share your thoughts on the role of cloud in your digital transformation journey in various businesses/industries that you have been a part of? How did you take on the journey? And some examples you could use could be from convincing the board to internalize with business and IT. Did you take the big bang approach or bite-sized approach with quick wins? And possibly some of the KPIs considered for making this journey a success. We can start, or you know what, Peter, you're closer. Why don't we pass the mic over to you? Why don't you tell us?
Can everybody hear me? Yeah. All right. So, I have 2 use cases that I can relay. First was at NYU, and it goes back, and Marlabs was there in the beginning. It's probably going back 6 years ago. And at that time, when you asked somebody, are you doing cloud? If they were doing a hypervisor, they said, oh yeah, we're doing cloud. Lots has changed since then. I think a lot of people understand what cloud means. It's evolved. I think a lot of people understand it. So the biggest problem we had in NYU was we would provision servers for peak demand, which happens 1 or 2 or 3 weeks a year, and then leave it that way for the entire year. Like very inefficient, very no scalability. So the evolution went to hypervisors, and then we did the first AWS system. And the objective was to build something called Knowledge Commons, which is basically a knowledge management network to help researchers and academics and even students share knowledge. And we built the first version in 3 months, which everyone was really kind of shocked at, that it happened that quickly. The evolution took longer, and we went through this agile lifecycle, and I think that's one of the key things about the cloud is that it ties in well to an agile development lifecycle, because you don't have to deal with the provisioning and the lifecycle of having to build hardware to get it online. So we spent 2 years evolving the product. So that was my first journey into the cloud. It was infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, I guess is what that would be called. And it was very successful. The big challenge in the end, and this is kind of one of the things we'll talk about later, is the challenge is not technology, it's people and adoption and how people's roles change in an organization. From people who provision computers, systems, to lots of different roles in the organization. So that was one of the bigger challenges that we faced there. Second use case is at CIEE now. So we're a global organization. We're in 40 countries, 150 something locations, primarily based out of Portland, Maine, and then now we're building in Boston, and we're in the process of refitting that. But we have people all over the world. We're about 1,000 people. So we're not a big organization, but we handle about 40,000 students a year. And so I had to find a way to be able to scale rapidly. And again, we're working with Marlabs. Now we're using Azure. And there's a whole conversation around AWS versus Azure and the evolution paths. I think are kind of interesting topics all on their own. I think Azure is really amazingly kind of changed in the last few years. So we're in the process of building taking everything that we have, 4 data centers, and moving them all to the cloud in 1 year. And again, the biggest challenge is people and the fear that it instills in people and how their jobs are going to change and what does that mean in terms of their career path. So that's the major point of contention. I haven't found good KPIs yet to really. I mean, right now we look at services migrated as a gross KPI. I'm sure there are better ones. I have to say I don't have a good answer for that. If anybody has a good answer, and this is a conversation that please let me know.
KPIs tend to be personal.
Yeah.
Particularly to industries or organizations. So
Sure.
your KPI is as good as anybody's, I would imagine.
It's as good as anybody's.
There you go.
So, sorry.
And we're going to hold questions, so you may find some commonality in some of the stories in each of these journeys. So we're going to try and save some time at the end for questions. And then if we have some additional time when we mingle, please feel free to have that discussion with any of the panelists also. Moving right along, Laura, since you're to the next left person.
Sure. So my first experience, I guess, if I think back about the cloud, was that it was more software as a service back when I was the Chief Information Officer at Kpis, which was a healthcare advertising agency, where we ultimately selected Workday as our HRIS platform. And the realization during that time was that it could be done much more efficiently, really getting best-in-class systems and services without needing the resources or the time to build the platform ourselves. So that was my first foray into the cloud, so to speak. When I moved over to NBC Partners, which is another holding company of advertising agencies, they were already, the corporate office alone was already on Google for an email and collaboration platform. And as a holding company, we had many advertising agencies underneath us, all on different platforms, some exchange in-house, some were on Google, some were on Microsoft's platform. And it became apparent then as well that there were a lot of efficiencies to be made from a cost savings perspective to consolidate through an enterprise agreement onto an Office 365 environment. We migrated to that platform. And that was the first realization to me, doing things that are traditionally done in-house, that, wow, I can sleep at night and not have to worry about these things that really traditionally would get under my skin and really keep me up at night worrying about, or if I saw an alert in the morning or something was down and we had screening executives. And in the advertising space, there's a lot of emotions there, a lot of emotions on the executive side. That this was something that really could be done in a really good way that I didn't have to own, or that I had to own, but somebody else could actually do in the best way possible. So, we ultimately migrated the entire organization to a single platform, and from a cost savings perspective, that was significant. From an efficiencies perspective and availability and uptime perspective, that was also really efficient. We even put in some redundancy in there with other providers as well, which was really great. And so that sort of opened the door to what else could be put in the cloud. And we ended up replacing a corporate sort of back-end data center, which was small and always having failures and not necessarily reliable from a DR perspective, but moving that into the Azure cloud as well and having our DR environment into Azure. And also selecting a bunch of other applications. So I guess we've sort of taken little baby steps. I've taken the baby steps and got into things. Now I'm into much more of a big bang approach that everything will move into the cloud, and we're into that journey. And everything we're going to do is going to be either a software as a service or in a cloud. If we have to build it and we have to actually do something on our own in data analytics or wherever it might be, it will be in the Azure cloud most likely.
I just wanted to get a feel for the audience, and if you don't mind, Prakash, I just wondered how many folks here within your organizations I'm assuming that everyone in the room has some aspect of their infrastructure or services within the cloud. Would that be safe to say? And I don't mean to point out anyone who doesn't have anything, because I would ask which one of you folks actually has no part of your organization or services within the cloud. But is it safe to say that everyone within this environment, within the room, has some service within the cloud? I see a lot of handshaking, and I would imagine if you didn't, you're just going to go hide somewhere in the back. So, Bob, with that said,
I'll just tell a few stories. Speaking about convincing the board, I had a CEO of one of the organizations often ask me, "You want to put my applications and data?" While looking out, I'm sorry, a key part of the joke was that they were looking out the window and asking, "Which cloud do you want to put my application on and my data?" But it was really about the security and exactly where that is. And so I don't think there's a magic answer to how do you go about convincing the board to go there. I think that has to do with each and every concern. Actually, in some cases, my current example, it's more held up by the CFO than it is held up by the CEO because of their concerns there. So I think you have to go after each one, the classic answer to the cloud, and will my data be secure? Well, your money under your mattress or your data under your mattress is not as secure as the data in the bank. But as far as quick wins, I think that's the approach that I've used typically is quick wins to start, more of a global vision. But I think, much like Peter said, that quick win does more than just gain your senior management buy-in. It actually helps your staff build confidence in it. And in a lot of times, that's the bigger challenge, is that the staff isn't necessarily sure that's going to be there. Will they have a job tomorrow if this goes up into the cloud? So I definitely go there. Start with quick wins if it hasn't been there in the organization. And then as far as KPIs, again, I don't think there's any great answer there. I think that's more about what your goals are for going into the cloud or going digital. But I would say measure everything and anything you can, and then some, and compare it back to your expectations and adjust.
Okay. Daphne, you want to jump in?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Just like the rest of the panel had talked about, SaaS was certainly where we began. Everybody really began there, so I won't kind of reiterate that story. But what we tried to look at is from my past life, and I'm not the GE. I retired from the company not quite a year ago, so I'll try not to mention their name. If anybody says that Daphne said this about GE, I'll deny everything. And I'll say my digital twin was here or something, but not me. But what we try to do is just look at outcomes first, right? And I know that you mentioned that it's about security, and the question is the cloud secure? And we've had to turn that question around and say, is our use of the cloud secure? Are we securely using the cloud? Because just like cars can hurt you, but it's really who's behind the wheel that can really hurt you. So it's the people aspect that really makes this work or not work. And so we had to work with our business partners and say, what is the outcome that you're really trying to drive? There's tons of KPIs, tons of things that are important for a company. And when we look at our digital journey, which is what I know we're talking about a little bit, we said, well, what is it that we want to get done from a digital standpoint? And we said we want to have what we call using advanced technologies, including and especially the cloud, to be able to deliver a seamless customer fulfillment. Whatever the customer needs, whatever they want, what they believe they need, whatever they believe they want, whatever we believe they want, we had an external play. But at the same time, we had to have an internal play to drive internal efficiencies. So we use the cloud to do really both of those things. So we started out really simply with app to cloud, put everything that can go on the cloud, put it on the cloud. If anything is going to be retired, hurry up and retire it, accelerate the retirement so it doesn't have to go onto the cloud. If we had these enterprise systems like TrackWise and Innovia or My Workshop or the PLM systems or you name it, can we do a dev staging or DR environment, put that in the cloud? So it became cloud first and everything else second, and it went to SaaS, PaaS, and IaaS. And we actually, we couldn't make up, I said the name. We couldn't make up our mind. We did Azure, AWS, we didn't do Google, it was not under my watch anyway. And so we really had to focus on the outcome. So one quick example is when you look at connecting the enterprise together. We have all these different environments in the product development space, the commercial space, the logistics and manufacturing space, and we have after service. And everybody is optimizing their silo, but there's no flow. And digital is really about flow. Flow of information, flow of product, flow of money, flow of people. And if you don't have that flow, but you only have it vertically, then you're not going to have a connected enterprise. So when you look at putting data into the cloud and having it, whether it's machine data, systems data, customer data, whatever, and being able to aggregate that into the cloud, now you have the ability to have people or these silos, if you will, reach up and get that information, then you're able to transfer. So we had a lot of experiences so far. That was what we call the digital thread. Because without that thread, if you're pulling through your value chain, you're just going to have these discrete stacks that cannot fulfill the customer. And that's really what it was really all about. Some of the things that we looked at for how do you measure success was the two levels. It's the normal RAS, is it reliable, the data, the security and things like that, and resiliency. But it was really about driving costs out. So our after-cloud solution, we got tens of millions of dollars out by putting everything into the cloud that could be into the cloud that was worth it. And then we looked at mean time to value. How long will it take for us to be able to design for service or design for manufacturing? Can we do printing, and printing our products as opposed to manufacturing them? So we allowed the cloud to be able to help with product development faster, innovation happen faster, things like that. It is truly a journey. It is not, you don't arrive there. So I won't try to make it sound like, oh, we got it done and we're all finished. But this is the aspiration that the team is going after, and this is the kind of progress that they're making. So that was one example.
Okay, sounds good. I'm going to start again with you, Daphne, the second one. Start at that end and provide another common question to the panelists. And that second question is, can you provide one shining business example where cloud use in your digital journey yielded markedly better outcomes that would not have been achieved on premises or a do-it-yourself type of environment? And that, we can keep the innocence of the organization if necessary. But do the best you can.
Okay. I hope it's back. Okay. I'd say one example, so I gave you one digital thread, how do you connect the value chain within the company to drive efficiency, but then it's the external play. And a lot of you guys certainly know about the fact that we're an industrial company and now we're a digital industrial company and all that stuff you've read about. But if you look at the customer, it's about the power of 1%. If we could improve the productivity of an MR or the velocity of a locomotive, or if you could improve the uptime of an airplane engine. Many of you guys have been on an airplane where they say, sorry, our flight is not going to take off because we have a maintenance problem, right? And so when you look at the cloud and our ability to have the digital twin, you have sensors that are sitting out there and the analytics on the edge, machine learning, deep learning, and being able to take those failure modes that are coming off of those devices, whether it's an engine, whether it's a locomotive, whether it's a wind turbine, or whatever it happens to be, and those sensors are able to feed that data and feed those into the cloud. Analytics happens, and the more data that comes out, you see the patterns that are hidden to the MR operator or the locomotive, the conductor. But when you have the technology that is in the cloud, that is being able to capture all of that data, right, using the cloud software, you're able to then understand how you can have predictive parts ordering, how you can have predictive maintenance. So instead of that airline telling you that they're going to keep you at the gate, they could have anticipated that, and said, this engine is going to go down in about 3 days or about 3 weeks. Let's take it out of service at a time of our choosing, the airline's choosing, and we would be able to have uninterrupted travel flow. And the same thing with our MR and our CTs and numerous devices. It's all about the data, the aggregation of that data on the edge, but being able to do the analytics and data science. The combination of physics and physical science, the data allows the OT, operating technology team, and the IT team to work together to collaborate to drive the power of 1%. So if you can improve 1% in the transportation business, that's $60 billion over 15 years. In the healthcare industry, if you can improve patient flow and efficiency and take all the waste out of patients, you're improving $80 billion over 15 years, and that's with 1% improvement. So that's an example of what we have been able to do.
So a great example. I feel safer now.
Not yet. Not all the airlines are doing it.
Bob, you want to see if you can come up with something that keeps the planes from falling out of the sky?
No, I don't think I can beat that one. I'm gonna go very practical, very kind of small scale, but it will kind of demonstrate. So when I joined Security Finance, they had a mobile application that was in production for about 9 months. They had about 5,000 registered users on that application. They only put data out that they could, that was publicly available to that application or easily available. And they were seeing about 10 or 15 transactions per day on that application. We were successful at opening that up and putting the data out into the cloud and leveraging API technologies and others to actually enable that application to display and take payments and other functionalities that were critical. And within a very short period of time, that application now is the largest growing segment of our payment solution. It is now over 1,000 transactions a day. It is 25,000 registered users every month instead of the 5,000 they had for the 6 to 9 months that they had it out before. So it was a huge jump and something that clearly sets up other opportunities. Clearly, when it's that successful, you've got other things then that you have to worry about. But it is one of the shining examples that is pretty recent in my current role.
It's a pretty good mix. I like the way the diversity of the panel, where you have something very large and global, and something that's very practical within a smaller organization, but it still shows I guess the multiple of the growth. So I think that's a great example. Laura?
Yeah, I think it probably, from an actual implementation perspective, I would discuss the infrastructure, the software as a service migrations that we did. But I think what really the shining example is going to be what I'm about to achieve in my current organization, and that is, we're a not-for-profit organization without a whole lot of people resources. Not a whole lot, certainly not a lot of talent as it comes to the cloud and what we could be doing, and a huge need and requirement to really dive into the analytics of the data, not just the data that we have in our own control, our own electronic health record data for our consumers or patients, but also state provided or emergency room provided or managed care service provided data that we want to tie together and pull together to really understand how are our consumers' lives changing as a result to different services that we're able to provide to them. And by doing this in the cloud, from my preliminary discussions already, we are going to be able to answer questions that we haven't been able to answer in the past because we didn't have the time or the resources or the funding to actually build things in-house. We're going to be able to do that for a really nominal cost in the cloud and do it really, really fast. And that's going to just open the door to, you know, tremendous opportunities and tremendous other initiatives that are already in the works across, you know, my organization, as well as collaborating with other organizations to provide new integrated care initiatives.
Would you say, when you mentioned that you're given this ability now for analytics, the biggest impediment may have been licensing or scaling up to even get to that opportunity to actually bring all that data together? Just for
I
clarity.
think it's licensing, it's hardware, it's disk space, it's the knowledge of how to do that with the various technologies, you know, that where this data may be coming from and the various sources that it may be in different formats, and what's available today in the cloud is very easy to pull that all together very quickly.
Yep.
And report on it.
Cool. All right, there. Peter, any great example in education?
Sure. So probably, and then I'll echo Laura's comment about what we're doing now is going to leapfrog what we've done in the past. But the shiny example that I can give you is NYU Knowledge Commons, which first version of the system we built in 3 months, and we're able to evolve over time. That could never happen with the provisioning cycles for the old school way of doing things. It just is impossible. So we were able to build and scale, and then ultimately we didn't quite get to the point where we were doing auto scaling. That was one of the dreams I had. But that's not possible to do with physical data centers. The biggest challenge we had there is convincing people that the cloud was safe and that it was cost effective. And at that time, a lot of the literature was saying, you know, the cloud is going to save you money. I don't think that's the way to approach a cloud project in an organization. You shouldn't make it about saving money because you may not. And we had some conversations earlier. If you don't have a good governance process by which you can control who's launching what and when, and things get launched and forgotten, it's going to be more expensive. So don't sell it on cost savings. But we have a lot of learnings in that process, in that journey. A lot of it was around governance and how to manage, still have some controls, and have the agility to build quickly and scale, and be able to scale down if you need to. So you don't have to auto scaling, which should have a high water, low water, all kind of strategy, which is needed. You scale it out, and when you don't need it, scale back down. And those are hard to do. They're not really as easy as one would like to get, but that's coming. But that was the system where it was very video intensive. People were loading up terabytes of video. There's no way to scale that in hardware. You just have to keep buying drives and archiving data was difficult with physical devices. In the cloud, it's very relatively straightforward. You can push things into deep storage. It's very, very easy to pull it back. Very easy. So it changed the way we thought about how we build systems fundamentally for the whole organization. In fact, now NYU has a cloud-first strategy. When I was there, it was cloud over my head. But that was the transition, and it took a couple wins. And honestly, some of the early leaders are not going to survive it. They'll get, you fight the battles, and then you take your moments and you move on. And then someone comes in and says, "Oh, we can do it." But there was the shining example for me is building that system. I probably shouldn't use NYU as an example, but it's okay.
They know now, so cat's out of the bag. It's okay. I'm looking, is Prakash around? I'm just checking on the time. I wouldn't worry about it. I think I'm gonna move over to the directed questions because of the comment ones were lengthy in our responses. So if we have time at the end, we'll come back and I'll try to keep it pretty succinct if I can. Daphne, I'm gonna start with you first on the directed questions. And the question I have for you is adhering to internal security and compliance guidelines with cloud usage is tricky. Can you talk to us or talk us through your successes and challenges with implementing adequate security and compliance controls, tools, and processes that allow you to benefit from the cloud while being adherent to those particular compliance constraints? If you could provide a real-world example, that would be great.
Okay. Well, first, there's a lot of benefit to the cloud. And with every benefit, there's also some potential challenges, right? And we know it's really software that's running in the cloud, and software has vulnerabilities, right? And then there's people who want to kind of get in there and attack those. And so the things that kind of concern me at times, and has concerned me at times, about the cloud is, somebody once said that you can't fix what you can't measure, and you can't measure what you can't see. And when you think about what you can't see, when you put things into the cloud, and we used to have network connectivity that using monitoring or logins, you could see what the users were doing, you could see the service levels, you can see the applications, you can see all this stuff. And now when you put it into the cloud, it's much more difficult to see what's really happening. And so how do you actually drive the KPIs that you need to drive when you don't always have that visibility? When you think about data and the fact that data has to be deleted, is it going to be securely deleted, right? And when it's being deleted, is it really gone? Is the data being encrypted when it's at rest, and is it encrypted when it's in transit? All those things about data. You don't know when the data is stored. You don't have the physical storage location. You don't know what server or cluster it's on. So then, what happens? How do you know, right? So that's an example of a risk that's always been, a concern. You think about multi-tenants and the ability for exploitation to happen when you've got, every tenant should be in isolation, and if there's a vulnerability in the infrastructure or a vulnerability in the app or whatever, the platform, then that vulnerability, if there's an intruder that is inside of one of the tenants, the possibility for that to be into the other tenants is there. So now your attack surface has just doubled or tripled or what have you from a cyber standpoint. So that's one. I think the last one that comes to my mind is what we all struggle with is identity and access management. And unauthorized use, the reason why we have the cloud anyway is because it's easy to do self-service access. But when you have ease of self-service access, you really have ease of self-service access. And we used to call it shadow IT back in, and I wasn't the only one. I know you all call it shadow IT too, right? When you have people that are accessing the environment that you didn't necessarily give them permission to. And when I was calling them that, they really hated that. So I think we called it dynamic solutioning. So we changed shadow IT to dynamic solution. So we should have called it business solution, more of a BS than DS. But anyway, so the challenge with that is how do you, if you don't know who's on the platform, if you don't know who's in there, because everyone has access to it, then you open yourself up or ourselves up for malware or exfiltration or things like that. So those are some of the things that concern me a little bit about the cloud. There's a ton of opportunity there. That's just like three. When I think about an example, one did not happen to me, and I'll share that one first. Somebody told me about the HR systems, that it was a cloud-based system. And you know how you can all put your bank account information as to where you want your direct deposit. And apparently hackers got in and changed the bank account. Was that your company?
I know exactly what's there.
It was incredible. I mean, who thinks of these things? So they changed the bank account to be the bad guy's bank account. And the good news is that, well, detection is usually a problem in companies. It takes 3 or 4 months to detect something. That one clearly got detected pretty quickly. You want to say something there?
No, it got caught pretty quickly, and it caused a little bit of craziness, but ultimately we learned a lot about phishing, and
Yes.
I want to keep trying to keep people educated.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Phishing, and that was my second example. Was it happened in my company, was the CEO we thought it was the CEO who had written the CFO and said, "Can you give these guys, PO?" And I know they're not in the system right now. They don't, they're not in our environment yet as a vendor, blah, 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 but we'll fix that on the back end. And then because of the culture of compliance and the security mindset that the CFO had and his controller had, they sent that to my team, and we were able to realize it was, they had, of course, the names, wrong by one letter, of course, and it was a person out of Canada. So these things happen, and it's not a matter of whether, it's a matter of when, and it's just a matter of detection. So how do you then go beyond where you are a threat? It will come, it will happen, and I think you start with an enterprise cloud strategy. You've got to start with that. So I don't worry about the detection right away and all that, but you start with the strategy. What is the risk tolerance that we have? What are your crown jewels, and where should those be? Should those be in a private cloud? Should they be in a public cloud? What is your risk tolerance? What's your architecture strategy? When are your pen testing going to happen? Your auditing going to happen? So having a strategy for your enterprise, for cloud, and it has to be bought into by the function, by the business community, because you're going to have governance, and from the bottom to the top and top to the bottom, so they have to buy into the need for governance. Cyber insurance is another thing that needs to happen, like flood insurance. It doesn't stop flooding, it doesn't stop hacks, but it does help you weather the storm. I think having a good detection capability is going to be also important. And I know Marlabs offers something that helps with the assessment somewhere, one of your 360 products. So having a good detection. And then finally, as we heard earlier, Peter, it's not about the technology, it's about people. So we have a culture, a hygiene of security. People know to check about phishing, and don't click on this. I read a thing in one of the NACD things today that said 40% of accidents that happen or breach that happen have come from employee negligence. I don't know if that's true. I just read it today, and that came from the CEOs and the C-suite, that people leave their tablets open, they leave notebooks open, they go home at the end of the day, and things like that actually cause things to disappear or be replicated in a bad guy's environment. So it's the ability to have hygiene that's really good for security. So I'll just stop there and let you ask the next question. Hope that helps.
Thank you. Bob, you're next. And the question for you is, in today's on-demand gig economy, there's constant pressure to build new product and platform features to cater to every business need quicker and faster. She's under the solo. In your cloud-led transformation journey, what has been your experience in leveraging DevOps, containers, microservices to enable you and your team from being more agile and help bring in automation to the entire development and deployment process? And I think we had this conversation probably about an hour ago, so it should be pretty fresh.
Yeah, well, first of all, I think it's a huge question, right? They touched on almost every topic here. Besides DevOps, not besides, but DevOps, containers, microservices, Agile. I'll try and address the root of the question. I'll leave the whole gig economy comment alone. But the root of the question, I think, is really in Agile. One of the core components is delivering something quickly to your customer base and getting real-time feedback. I think things such as containers, DevOps or automation, development operations and automation, microservices really enable you to get that faster. So if you can't deploy quickly, you can't get that feedback quickly. So everything I've been talking about is really more around that agile or agility, as one of the panels said. So just a little story. At a past engagement, I came in and the deployment process took 2 weeks. And it was a customer-facing application. They'd pull it from the customer and go about deploying the next version. That process really doesn't work, right? It's negative customer experience, and that's not even to talk about break fix once you actually deploy. And through automating that, going to the cloud, automating the DevOps, I was able to actually move it to kind of a 1-hour deployment, push-button deployment, which I think helped a lot. It didn't get us all the way where we wanted to. Much like Peter said, that the goal was to get to self-aware components under microservices so that they could actually self-heal, maybe self-deploy or self-unwind to the previous version, and self-scale. So I still have a lot of work left to do in that area, but I think the approach to go through with microservices, DevOps, and containers is the solution to get you there if you want any kind of resiliency. If you think about 5 nines, there is no other way to achieve that kind of an uptime for an application. Because by the time you get the call and you call your engineer, or the engineer calls you to say, hey, I'm going to reboot the system, your 5 nines are gone for that year. So it has to be automated. I'll stop there.
Okay. All right, Laura, I have one for you. Over the years, you led numerous media houses, both for-profit and not-for-profit. How has your experience taken up cloud-led transformation journeys for profit and not-for-profit organizations? And how different has the approach and challenges faced you faced them?
Yeah, so I've never worked for a non-for-profit media company, but I have most of my experiences in the for-profit world in advertising and media. And most recently, it's only for the last 6 months, I've dived headfirst into the not-for-profit world, into a healthcare organization. Listening to Daphne speak about all the cybersecurity threats gives me serious anxiety, but thanks for that. But one of the things that's such a marked difference between the for-profit world and the not-for-profit world, whether it's good or bad, is the level of talent that I inherited and the number of resources that I inherited, and where resource financially is spent in the organization. So by moving things out of the direct realm of the responsibility of the people in my organization, I'm able to really put subject matter experts and make sure that those systems are being done in the best way that they can be from a security perspective and everything else. And I inherited an environment where I wasn't so confident that our controls were in place and everything else. But now starting to move things into the cloud and starting to really reel in those controls using third-party companies such as Marlabs has really helped me to reel that in. But so if I think about what's the difference between the for-profit and the not-for-profit, I have to say that the not-for-profit world is a lot more fun from a cloud transformation perspective because first of all, there's nobody else who's going to do my job. I was talking to somebody about this earlier. There's nobody else who's going to tell me how to do IT because everybody is busy doing what they're specifically there to do. Where in the for-profit world you have everybody, every executive, and then some sort of giving their opinion about how you should and you shouldn't be doing things. So really the buck stops with me. I still have to pitch it. I have to convince the board, and I have to convince the executive team, but it's very easy for me to do that. You know, I just have to put together, you know, a very simple document that explains the pros and the cons and the advantages and the disadvantages, and they're basically gonna do, you know, the right thing for the company because I'm gonna do the right thing for the company. So it's a lot of fun, and it's also transformative because, you know, they're not accustomed to thinking of ways to really transform the business. They're used to thinking about ways of just operating day to day. And so my coming into the not-for-profit world, I'm looking at it much more strategically as opposed to tactically. You know, how can we do things better, more efficiently, more cost effectively, and the cloud is the way we're going to get there faster and just get there at all. You know, we would never get there without it. So from my perspective, it's a lot of fun, and it's going to be a fantastic journey that I'm very excited to be on.
You've just convinced me to go back to nonprofit world. Corporate is just burning me out, and you're having fun, and I'm just not sleeping. So,
I was burned out for sure before.
all right. And Peter, we have another question here for you. The cloud is providing a democratized platform for deploying and running highly scalable AI services that in turn are fueling digital transformations. What has been your experience with AI services in the cloud, including bots, APIs, machine learning, and machine learning frameworks? Any real world examples in the cloud that you can share with us?
Yeah, that's a really, really interesting area that we're starting to develop. We did some work at NYU with that time it was Hadoop and Spark. And it was a little not as easy to ramp up. I mean, we got some help from Marlabs. But what we're doing now with Azure is really amazingly transformative in terms of how we look at how we use data. So the Azure Machine Learning Studio environment is almost it's a WYSIWYG tool almost, where you can plug components together, whether it's it's an Azure SQL database, or it's a SQL server, or files, or CSV files. It can pull data from many different sources, ODBC, and so on, and apply machine learning algorithms like Cambridge regression analysis, or other kinds of supervised or unsupervised learning algorithms that are all kind of there. And plug that into your own frameworks, including Python and R, and expose the results of that as web services, and render them visually very quickly. So one of our challenges today is we have a lot of locations. We're building 25 global institutes, which are many campuses around the world, where we're offering courses, and we're trying to match supply and demand, where students are looking at, going to a location, what courses are offered there. So for us, guessing at which courses we offer at which location is very important, and it's difficult to do. So we have this new, we have some Python work that we've done. We've done some work with a couple of folks at Wharton, and they have a really interesting economic model that helps predict the economic value of a course. So it helps us figure out which courses we want to, and we haven't got that yet. This is what's in flight right now. And so we just had, actually, I had to jump out for a conference call earlier where the Wharton guys were showing what they were doing, and it was pretty cool. It ties into the same environment. So the idea is to be able to use data in a much more predictive way. Right now we do a brute force, which is that course ran really well last semester, let's run it again. And then somebody else in another sentence says, oh, that's a good idea, we'll run that too. That's not a really good idea. I'm sorry for returning confidences, but that's not a really good idea to do it that way, right? You want to be able to use some data to try to figure out how to optimize across multiple locations And so this is the only way we can do it. And the interesting thing is you can do this really fast in the cloud with Azure Machine Learning Studio. The biggest challenge for us is the ramp-up curve in terms of transitioning from how to use data in a traditional, we're used to reporting, and dashboards, to using machine learning as a tool, as a data tool, to help you predict which direction to go in. One of the transformative, and we were having this conversation earlier, is how do you get people ramped up on this stuff? So interestingly, Microsoft has a bunch of courses in a platform called edX. I don't know if anybody's familiar with edX, but it's a massive open course, massive open online course. So 10,000 people take the course. So Microsoft put all their courses online, and I took their machine learning course. And I got through it, and I was able to plug in data and render it and do all kinds of stuff. And very quickly, it's a 4-week course. By the way, it's free. And so I'm pushing all my team, everyone on my team that deals with data, to go through this. And when they come out of it, it's like, wow, holy cow, we can do this, And so that's part of the journey for us is transforming people on how they think about data, not just as a kind of reporting tool, which is, to me, looking in the rearview mirror as you're driving down the highway, which is fine as long as you're on a straight road. You need better ways of using data to predict which way you're going to go. So you need more than just a rearview mirror when you're trying to navigate lots of stuff. So that's kind of where we are in the journey.
I just wanted to repeat something that Peter mentioned that we found helpful among the panelists. The courseware itself, and I believe you said it was MIT that's providing this courseware, and it is free. And in case you didn't hear it, it's EDX, Edward David X. And our question among the panelists was that, would you find that it could make some of your team members proficient in a particular subject matter or skill? And the answer was yes, and that they can become certified in certain skills within your team. We just found that fairly interesting that there was courseware available, and but we throw that out there. We have a closing check. We want to close it time. We have a particular closing question for the panelists, and then after that, we'll see if we can see if there are some questions that maybe you may share some of these experiences similar to that of the panelists, and we'll see if we can open up for a few questions among the panelists. But among the panelists, what is your biggest learning from your cloud journey thus far? I'll let you go
first. It's people. Was it with me?
Yes.
So it's people. It's all people. And that's the biggest challenge. I think technology is ahead of where we are in terms of governance, how we manage the ability to do these things that can get out of control very easily in an organization. How do you get people to understand and adopt? How do you get past the fear of change? Because your roles are going to change. Some people, especially if you're certified Cisco network engineer, or I don't know if everybody remembers No Balance, but you're gonna dig your heels in. You're not gonna want to move. So that's the biggest challenge: is education, knowledge management. How do you transform an organization to embrace change? And you do that with successes. You're going to have a lot of resistance until you see that first win, and then all of a sudden everybody's a fan. There's a kind of a paradigm around change management, which is you have early adopters, early followers, late followers, and a diehard, out of my cold dead hand. And so it's about, I think, 17%, 27% or 7%, something like that. You get the early followers first. They will take the early
they get the early adopters first, and they will bring in the early followers, and then the early followers will bring in the late followers, and then the rest of them forget about it. Just say goodbye. But that's the biggest challenge, I think, for me, has been how to help an organization, help people not get past the fear. The biggest fear right now is security. And I have to tell you, that's always a conversation I always have with anyone I talk about with the cloud. It's no different than your data centers. Absolutely not. You have the same responsibilities. You have the same risks. It is no different. So that's not. It's not a differentiating factor. I think in security. I think you actually have a lot more tools. I've signed NDAs and have seen the presentations both at Amazon and Microsoft. They have way more money invested in security than I could ever possibly put on the table. It's impossible to match that. So for me, security is not a reason, but you're going to face that. It's a fear factor that people will throw at you and say, well, I don't know if we're safe in the cloud. You're as safe as you are on your own data centers.
Okay, Laura?
Yeah, I certainly agree that the biggest challenge is the people and convincing and educating and changing your processes. But when I think about what's the biggest learning from my cloud journey so far, it's probably twofold. One is that I don't have to own it and build it in order for it to be great. That not having to own it and build it is actually better. So that's probably the biggest learning. And then in addition to that, though, is one which is don't believe it just because somebody who's saying they're a cloud service provider is saying it does something a certain way. I think you definitely need to dig in. Certainly, if you're talking to Microsoft or one of the big players, Azure, AWS. You can probably trust what they're telling you for the most part, but there are lots of, everybody is offering cloud today, so you really have to dig in and understand, and to Daphne's point, how are they implementing it, where are they storing the data, what is the redundancy, what does the data security look like, and that's probably the most important thing if you're talking to smaller players, not getting sucked into the hype just because something looks good.
Good. I've actually had that same experience where I flew to the location of the data center because it was such a small player and maybe required just a good advice. Wow.
Well, I've actually had it with a fairly large player, not Microsoft or AWS, but I won't say Rackspace's name, but I've had a really poor experience there as a cloud provider as well. Maybe there's more than one of me. One of these experiences, but the learning again. I would just echo the people conversation. I think it's the only way. It's a culture and a people challenge. The technology really is there to go and get almost anything you want to try and achieve. I would think Agile as not only a mechanism to build something and deploy it rapidly, but also to convince and change that culture from within. Because I think, as Peter said, as you start getting the wins, there's a lot more people who jump into it and follow, and then start asking you, hey, can this too go? Can we configure this application so it's the same architecture as that application? And it kind of builds upon itself. So I would encourage you not to look at it as just a development mechanism, but more of an approach to change the organization at heart.
Daphne?
Okay, I think a word comes to my mind, and it's reimagine. And so, as you guys spoke about people, it's the culture, helping the teams reimagine who they are, help them to, learn, relearn, unlearn, taking them to Silicon Valley, go to a startup, go see Singularity, go to Percolate, go to MIT, whatever, and just help them reimagine and get new thinking in the mind. So reimagine, so that I agree with the culture aspect and the skills aspect. But then I also said to myself, as I was thinking about this question, it's also, we have to remember that we're just not about a technology. We're about reimagining the business models. We're reimagining the processes. It's not just putting a marketing website up or something. It's like, I asked this one company a couple weeks ago, are you a healthcare company that does technology, or are you a technology company that does healthcare? And based on how you look at that question or answer it, might determine what you do with the cloud or other advanced technologies. Is it an afterthought, or is it what guides you? And I remember that the product is really the customer's experience. The customer experience is the product. How they get their job done, how they drive their percent improvement or whatever it is. It's not the physical thing, it's how they interact with it and how they get better because of it. And so it's about reimagining our people, reimagining the business that we're in, and I think it'll give us a different result. So that's my learning as a cloud person.
Okay, great. That is the conclusion of the questions that we have scripted thus far. I believe, Kash, you wanted to make an announcement, or at least...
I think for everyone here, if you can fill out the forms, I'm going to have Pam help out collect it, because we're going to shortly announce the 2 winners for the Amazon Echo Show. So please help us where we could, put your forms in and get a lucky draw. So Pam, if you want to check with folks, great.
And then the other thing is, are there any questions that folks may have for the panelists? I would imagine that you may have seen some similarities in your environment. Does someone
Yeah, we'll start here.
Initially?
Yeah, so we'll start here first. Simon.
From the description, it sounds like you're focusing a lot on infrastructure as a service when we talk about cloud. But are your opinions similar when we're talking about storage, file storage in the cloud, as well as software as a service, that you would prefer moving to web-based software versus having local network software?
Is that a question for a particular panelist or a general?
Open question.
Yes.
I think I can actually chime in. It sounds like
I would say it just maybe depends. If there's a compliance situation where there's HIPAA or PII kind of data that you're concerned about, in that kind of example, I would say private. So I don't know if it would always, enterprise level, I'm going to say public. So my thing is it's cloud first, but then it's back to your enterprise cloud strategy. What are your crown jewels, and what can you afford to put up there? And then if you're going to put them up there, you've got to do penetration testing or whatever has to be done to make sure your jewels are okay. But things like compliance, I would be a little cautious.
and the environments I've been in, it varies. You can even consider some of their examples where there were business services that you may move to the cloud that are not attached particularly to your infrastructure in and of itself. So that takes it outside of the realm of just worrying about infrastructure or file services. It could be a service that you provide typically internally or with your external partners that you may want to move to the cloud. And maybe an API that you have running within your environment. And again, move that to the cloud. I think it's more efficient. So it really depends. And then when it comes to compliance, whether it's HIPAA or PCI or some of the European type of compliances that are saying, it varies because you can get into a hornet's nest of trying to move certain services into the cloud. Any others?
Any other
Questions?
Yes, so first off, thank you very much for tonight. But we covered a lot of topics about things to do. My question is, what is the number one pitfall to watch out for while you're transforming to the cloud?
Sure. So I think several, but governance and making sure that you don't let it run unmanaged and just give people accounts and let them go and create things and ad hoc. So you have that little bit of process around how you manage deployments. And then the second is around change management and helping people and helping other people move along the journey. Those are my two top areas that I at least want to move.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think we actually did talk about it without really talking about it. And it comes down to, the governance process of making sure the security is in place, making sure your controls are in place, making sure your people know how to operate in that type of environment. It is a journey for the people. It is a change process for your staff. You don't do things the same way anymore. How do you do your access controls and all of that? So that's probably the biggest thing that you have to look out for and make sure that you implement. You don't just assume because I'm putting it there, I don't have to worry about those things. Those are the things you actually do have to worry about the most.
Thank you.
I also think it was implied in some of the questions like the KPIs and things like that, which is make sure you have goals that you're setting for what you're trying to achieve, or goals for going to the cloud, whether it's data or whether it's application or otherwise, and measure to those goals. I think if you don't have those measurements, it's problematic. You don't know what you have.
And I would just add one more point. I would agree with what the team was saying, is when you're on premise, you own your platform, you own your network, you own your apps, you own your data. Then as you start to go out to PaaS, SaaS, etc., that starts to bifurcate a little bit. And so being clear on what the provider, the CSP is going to own, what you guys are going to own together, and then what you're going to own on, what are you on your own for? And just being really clear. And that's part of the conversation that you have with the CSP.
Thank you. There's one more I throw out there is the financials that was mentioned earlier about selling just the transformation itself purely on financials. Often it just doesn't bear out in that environment. So if you can lean more towards some other goal that you have as opposed to cost reduction. Not that that can't be achieved, but when you typically just pick that as your primary goal, often you may not get there. Because there may be things that are just unforeseen when you move into that part.
Yeah, we did find that out because every scenario we run, our data center is about 20 to 30% cheaper than going to the cloud. But that doesn't mean there's not other benefits.
Correct. There were some other questions, I believe.
Anyone else?
Yeah, over there. Gosh.